Sound quality car audio competition results are a terrible way to gauge or measure true sound quality. Here's why. Before we get into that, though, we are going to take a look at ResoNix Sound Solutions. We are currently running a 15% off sale on our CLD squares, the 40-piece box only with the code CLD4015. Gets you 15% off. It's going to be while supplies last. We are currently clearing out this current packaging style and making way for a new version of the packing. Still going to be 40 square feet, but yeah, we just need to make room in our warehouse for the new packaging that's coming in. Get it while it's hot. Anyways, back to our video on why sound quality car audio competition results are a awful way to gauge how a car truly sounds as far as accuracy is concerned. Now, before we really get into it, I do want to do a disclaimer. It's not that I don't dislike, or sorry, it's not that I dislike competition. I actually actively support it more than almost anyone, I would say. I've sponsored through my companies every SVR, HVR, and finals for the past 5 years, except for HVR because it's only been around for 2 years. But anyways, I've hosted events of my own at my own shops in the past, flown in top judges, given away huge prizes. And on average, I've, did it knowing that I was going to lose money. On average, lost $3,000 to $4,000 per event because, I was dedicated to flying in, the correct judges, giving away prizes instead of stupid little trophies, right from my inventory, and no problem with it. And I still plan on doing it with the new warehouse that we got. I got my old shop back, so going to be able to host events there. And the biggest one that I am putting more eyes on the car audio sound quality competition than anybody else in the US, maybe even the world. I don't know. You guys know I do, or if you're watching this, I hope you know I do the competitor spotlight videos. You can find them, on our channel. I've been doing these videos on been doing these videos on competitors for a few years now. The total combined views that these videos have is over 270,000. No one else is putting eyes on modern car audio competition, at least in the US, like I am. So, what, Gustavo? Cat's meowing at me. Sorry. For anyone to try to discredit this video by saying, "Oh, he just hates competition" or whatever, I don't. I spend my own money to what? What? I know. I do spend my own money, and I leave you home to be on your own so I could go to these fun events. I go to these events. I fly out there. I stay out there. I, document them, document the competitors. I've documented sponsor booths. I've done it all in the name of trying to spread it. And the amount of people that come up to me at these events as the years go on and say something along the lines of, "Oh my God, I'm here because I saw your videos. I used to compete back in the day. I didn't even know they still did it. And I saw it on your YouTube channel, and now I'm, checking it out, trying to get back into it." The amount of people that have said that to me over the past 2 years is a lot more than your average person would probably think. Also, I still, moving on to the next points, I still compete occasionally, but I mostly just attend. I'm not the type to drive 18 hours. Oh my God, why are you meowing so much right now? Why right now? Sorry. This isn't a thing for me to drive 18 hours and, spend my whole weekend trying to win a trophy. I'm more there for friends, camaraderie, hanging out, having fun. So anyways, yeah, my point is this video isn't coming from some angry outsider. I am going to these events. I am putting them out there for the world to see in a good light. I'm putting these competitors out there in a good light. I'm not here trash talking it, kind of, until now. So, and this isn't exactly trash talk. This is more criticism to the people that use these events as a tool to try to perpetrate something that is not factually correct, as we will see in the data coming soon. Anyways, before we get into all this, let's first define what sound quality means. In short, sound quality is a direct translation of the term accurate and realistic reproduction of the input signal, meaning what comes in must come out exactly as it was originally recorded, and the recording should sound exactly as it was and was intended. It's very important to note, and I can't believe that I have to keep explaining this, sound quality is not subjective. Preference is. Preference is subjective. Sound quality is not. Preferences and desires out of a sound system is a whole separate discussion from true, accurate sound quality. Sound quality car audio competitions are about hitting a well-defined target, which is, again, accurate reproduction of the recording. The way I like to explain it, think of it like a dartboard, and the bullseye is the goal. But preferences, desires, or technical shortcomings of a sound system can either be close to that bullseye or far from it, or they could be right on it, you know? They can also be wrong or have flavor, as people like to call it, leaning in all different directions. Just as a dart can land left, down, up, right from that bullseye. It's the same thing with a car audio system in regards to how accurate they are. But again, sound quality is not subjective, and the judging isn't supposed to be either. There are specific rules, references that are supposed to be followed, but I think in this video, you'll see how far off things can truly be. And again, why using results of a sound quality event is not a good metric to gauge true performance of the accuracy of a car audio sound system. So yeah, why I'm making this video is pretty simple. I want to educate and provide some context for the inexperienced who may be interested, or just may just see some things online and be curious, or may even be falling prey to marketing via competition results. And also I want to do it for a little bit of a fun factor. I want to challenge those who so desperately hold on to and protect the prestige of car audio competition and how they put it on this ridiculous pedestal as if it's like curing cancer or something. But I'm not holding my breath that there's going to be any solid rebuttal to this video outside of a few keyboard complaints. And I'm also damn near sure I will not be changing any already made up minds. Again, that's not the point, but whatever. Little bit of info too. This video was already made, but I decided to remake it in order to be shorter, believe it or not, and to not get into the weeds of other topics and background context of topics that just don't need to be brought up or discussed to bring this up or go over this specific situation. So anyways, what really prompted me to kind of sit down and want to remake this, I didn't release that other video, but what made me want to sit down and focus on this part specifically. Recently, my buddy Jeffrey Hald posted a reply to a comment of mine disagreeing with my stance on this, which is totally fine. Disagree with me all you want. Now, my intent here isn't to throw Jeff in the hot seat or under the bus or whatever, but it is an unfortunate side effect of what I want to say about how this comment was made, which again is exactly what prompted me to make this video. So I feel like the context behind why I'm making this video is a little important. And it was how, you know, he stood on his position. And the reason I need to do this is, again, that I definitely need to make something clear, as exactly how he made this argument really bugs me. And again, is kind of what prompted me to sit down and remake this video. So instead of offering an actual argument, Jeff backed his position with what's known as ad verecundium, which is a fallacy that is an appeal to authority. So he listed off a handful of people he claims to have learned from and speak to regularly, which is awesome. Great. But, these people range from a PhD in acoustics, a longtime judge, the secret weapon ear, which, what the fuck even is that? Even just saying that out loud sounds super weird and cringy, but besides the point. An electrical engineer, you get the point. You see the screenshot. I have it right here, probably on the screen right now. The titles are impressive. They're completely meaningless, though, in this context, considering that he refuses to name who they are or bring them into the discussion. And he provides no actual reasoning or evidence of this stance from any of them. It's not their actual expertise being presented, which, by the way, like, I would be thrilled to hear from them on this topic. But as it currently sits and the way Jeff presented it, it's just a bunch of faceless titles being dangled like trophies, hoping the weight of a resume can carry an argument that was never actually made. So he even throws in the idea that there's a handful of others with accolades who agree with him, which leans right into ad populum, which is another fallacy and is the appeal to popularity, as if gaining enough random yes men, including the ones who like his comment, all 10 of which do not even tune their own cars and most are customers of his, somehow validates his point. Anyways, my point is, if your entire rebuttal comes down to a bunch of smart people who I won't name think I'm right, you're not actually making a case. You're hiding behind the supposed reputation of titles that you refuse to back up. And it brings not only your argument down, it brings down your overall credibility. Jeff, I know you're watching this. That's fucking whack. Don't do it. Do better. You are better. You can make your own arguments, I think, by now. You don't need to do that. Anyways, instead of playing that game, I'm going to do something else and provide some actual data without the need to quote invisible friends who are apparently really smart. So let's actually look at some substance here. That's what this video is for. Anyways, on to my main complaints and why I think car audio competition is not even close to a good gauge or metric to determine accuracy of a car audio sound system. My main complaint is sound quality competition judging is way too inconsistent, way too unreliable, and is, again, not a valid metric to gauge or measure genuine reproduction accuracy. It's just not possible. Why? We're going to get into. I'm just going to list my main thoughts right now, trying to keep this organized. Another reason, this is a small one, and I'm not sure we'll even get into this in this video, but I guess it really depends on how I'll flow through this all. There's organizational and classing problems that are very apparent. They're outdated, easily abused, and I'm talking about some organizations, not all. But there's just certain aspects of some organizations that just don't make much sense, at least in the modern world, modern car audio. I don't know. There's also regional bias. Different areas they shouldn't have, but they seem to have different reference points and different politics, which are unfortunately a part of car audio competition, but whatever. And again, I'm not sure we'll get into this whole regional thing in this video, but it depends on where I end up taking this, but I want to point it out. There's also, this is going to sound like a big one. I personally think this is a small one, but it might be worth mentioning. There's also conflict of interest. There are judges and installers, there's judges that are tuning and installing competitors' cars. That's a little tricky to navigate around, but a lot of people who compete like to throw that out as like fuckery, which I can agree with, but at the same time, the people that I know that do installs and tuning and also judge are very stand-up people. I don't think anyone who really this could apply to, at least off the top of my head. I don't really think it's a problem for them, but it might be worth mentioning. I don't know. Anyways, so yeah, those are my main points as to why this can get a little bit tricky to use competition results to say, yeah, this car first place, this is accurate, this is accurate, this is accurate. These are getting it's just let's get into the data. Let's get into why we're really here. So before we really dive into it, I'm going to explain what we're looking at here. I'm going to try to keep it somewhat quick as the numbers sort of speak for themselves. The data context is these are the results from probably the largest and quote unquote like biggest money round of the year. It was 46 competitors with 6 judges. Okay. Highly qualified judges, that I might say, especially compared to previous years. It's also highly important to note that all of these judges are from different regions, which is a good thing since we're not getting, into local bias, it can spread that out a little bit. Where competitors learn to tune exactly what a specific judge wants to hear, that is a thing. And that's kind of where local bias comes into play. Regardless if what that judge wants to hear is truly accurate or not, it doesn't really matter. It's just the truth of what happens. Again, not wanting to throw anyone under the bus, but I kind of have to in order to really make my point without watering it down or kind of implying things, hoping people know what I'm talking about, or, the situations there's a lot of situations like that in the car audio competition scene, where if you know, if you don't, you don't. Fuck that. Let's put it all on the table and just get this over with. This whole regional bias thing, frankly, and they're gonna call bullshit on this, and they're gonna fucking eat me alive for it. But whatever. This whole regional bias thing is huge in Texas specifically, from what I experienced at Aggieland when I went, not this past year, but the year before. And you can see it in their behavior on social media. The Texas crowd seems to go the hardest with these types of comments and claims on social media groups and forums where, they just seem to obsess over results at competitions, and they seem to put way more weight into a judge's feedback and results more than any other area I see. This is just my observation. It doesn't mean it's fact. It's just my observation. I'm sure there's plenty of people that agree with me. I'm sure there's people that don't agree with me. If you agree with me or not, it doesn't matter. Or if you don't even know, start paying attention to it online when you see people really heavily talking about results. Maybe start taking note of like where these guys are from and, things like that. Sorry guys, to my guys from Texas, I still love you, but it's what I see many of you talking about, your results and how they apparently mean something, and how seriously you guys take judge feedback, especially when the judging pool isn't huge down there from what I can tell, minus the one large event for the money round. And most of this isn't even really money round stuff that I'm referring to. It's mostly the organizations, where you get stuck with one judge or 2 judges for all your events, and you're appealing to one small sample pool. It just doesn't make sense. But anyways, all of this was corroborated by what I saw, heard, and experienced firsthand when I was there at your biggest event of the year. Anyways, I want you viewers to keep note of something. All of this data was collected voluntarily and publicly from competitors and was compiled by a computer. All right, so it was compiled by a community member who I'm going to leave unnamed, as I'm not sure he even knows I'm making this video or that he wants to be involved. Anyways, like I said, This is a money round from the largest event of the year with 6 highly qualified judges, as most people would consider them. I would consider them that. I personally was actually excited for this year's event because I was like, ooh, finally a stacked set of judges. And many other competitors were saying the same thing. A lot of people, again, behind the scenes in group chats, individual messages, chatter here and there behind the scenes, a lot of people were excited for this because there was finally, ooh, there's no outliers, there's no weird ones, there's no judge that they brought back from the grave who they think is going to be really cool, but their scores are all fucked up. It was just solid judges across the board. And yeah, I hope they watch this and don't take any offense to this. Again, this is not me dragging these judges through the mud. You know what? Maybe I'm going to, you know what? No, for the sake of transparency, I am not going to remove their names from this spreadsheet. I think we need to put everything on the table, but I am not trying to drag their names through the mud. I am just trying to point out the inconsistencies with results at cardio competitions, even the ones that are supposed to be the best and have the best judges, you know? So anyways, on to the Excel sheet with the results from this event. Now, before we actually get into the results, I want to explain something. Most competitors already know this. For those that aren't too involved with competition, I'm going to explain something. Scores from judges are less important than you think. It's not the scores that matter. It's more so their rankings for each competitor. So one judge might score lower than the average judge, and another judge might score higher than another judge. This on its own doesn't matter as long as low judge and high judge and all the ones in between track from competitor. So like, as they score cars, they all kind of stay, this one is low, this one is high, these guys are in the middle. As long as it stays relatively consistent like that with the rankings of how they place the competitors' vehicles, that's really what matters at the end of the day. So yeah, I mean, the scores, like if there's some extreme swings in scores, yes, it can influence, the average of how this, person places. But like at the end of the day, it's mostly the rankings that are important, not the score themselves. So we are going to be looking at how each judge ranked each competitor's vehicle. And again, I hope competitors are okay with me putting this data online. This information was collected publicly on a Facebook group. So if anyone is watching this and like doesn't like it, I'm sorry. It's not my intent to broadcast like your scores or your rankings or a judge's inconsistencies that may or may not exist. My point is, it's just to prove a point here that sound quality car audio competition is not a good way to gauge the accuracy or quality of a sound quality system. The only thing it is good for is to see how a car ranked at that event. That's it, nothing more. Anyways, let's get into it. All right, so here we are. Let's start with myself, Nick Apicella. My highest judge placed me at second place, which is pretty damn awesome. Cool, And my lowest judge ranked me at 14th place. This isn't that great sounding. I understand that. A 12 place swing, that's pretty it's pretty extreme, going from second all the way to 14th. But, I had a second place, a fourth, a fifth, a ninth, a 12th, and a 14th. All from judges that are supposed to be on the same page and should be, very accurate, considering, again, the status of this event, the status of how good these judges are. And again, I'm not taking away from how good they are at this, but these things do need to be said in order to make this point. You know, that's a 12 place swing from second to 14th. That's a lot. But what you're going to see here is that's actually not a lot. That's actually on the lower side. Let's get into some of the crazier ones. You know, let's look at Wallace Whitworth. He showed up with a really cool Cadillac. He placed anywhere from another second place from one judge all the way down to 25th. That is a 23 place swing. He had a second place, a third place, an 11th place, a 12th place, a 19th place, and a 25th place. If you don't understand what's happening, I don't know what to tell you. But again, I'm not just like cherry picking small, like one or two people here. You can look at all of this data right here, and I have how big the swings are right off to the side. It's pretty extreme. I just want to make, I want to throw out certain ones, Stephen Clutie, another one. This car, I don't know him, but I know his car is tuned by a very reputable tuner. He placed anywhere from 4th all the way to 31st. That's a 26-point swing. 4th place, a 5th place, a 12th place, a 19th place, a 22nd place, and a 31st place. How the fuck can anyone sit there and tell me, yeah, no, these are some of the best judges, and considering that, sound quality cardio competition is definitely a good way to gauge performance of a sound system. It's just the data is showing otherwise. Jeff, going back to you love data. You love your data on your screen. You love what it tells you. Here's the data. It's telling us that what you are saying is factually incorrect. Anyways, let's look at someone else. Let's look at Steve Wigner, buddy of mine. He placed anywhere from 3rd. By the way, actually, Steve has won this event before. He has a really good system. He has a really good platform. He knows what these judges are looking for. He's not a rookie to this. 3rd place, all the way down to 27th. That's a 24-place swing. 3rd place, 6th place, 11th place, 14th place, and 2 27ths. At least there was some agreement there. 2 people thought he placed 27th, but what the fuck? What is going on? Let's move on. Let's keep going. Troy Lefersky. This is a customer of mine. I did not tune his car, but I did do the install. Peter from PS Sound tuned it. So if anyone wants to say, it wasn't tuned well, go argue that Peter's tuning is not capable. We don't need to get into that. But anyways, it's a pretty relatively simple layout of an install. He originally came to me wanting a completely OEM system. So he has OEM speaker locations up front. He does have IB in the rear, but it's a very handicapped system as far as some of these other crazy systems above his. But anyways, he placed anywhere from 13th all the way to 41st. That's a 28-place swing. 13th, 20th, 27th, 31st, 31st, and 41st. What the fuck is that? Again, we're not cherry picking. We can pick random ones out of it. We can look at all of this and see that it is nowhere close to a tight spread between judges on how they're ranking these competitors. I don't know what sort of spread would constitute the accurate title, but it's not this. It's nowhere near this. Actually, the only times that there's any sort of semblance of accuracy are the top 2 competitors and the bottom 2 competitors. Outside of that, it's a clusterfuck. It's a complete clusterfuck. You know, last place has a 1 place swing. First place has a 2 point swing. Second place has a 4 place swing. Second last has a 5 place swing. Outside of that, it's all chaos, except for one. Robert Anderson had a pretty tight scoring. Everyone else, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Almost all of these are double digit swings as far as their placings go. Considering there's only 46 competitors, that's over it's over a 25% margin of error, at least. Some of these actually go higher. When we average it out, it's actually a 19. If we remove, sorry, it's not an average of 19, but if we remove the top two and the bottom six, most of which I don't even have all the data for because they didn't submit it. But if we remove those, the mean of all of these swings comes out to about a 19 place swing. That's almost a 50% margin of error. If you give that information to anyone in statistics or anyone who knows, anyone who's not fucking brain dead, and you say, hey, would a 50% margin of error be considered accurate? Anyone would look you straight in the face and say, absolutely fucking not. Not even close. And you'd be considered an idiot if you thought so, looking at data like that. Ignoring all of the everything that's going on here. If you said, hey, here's a set of data, would you consider this accurate? And almost 50% margin of error on average? Absolutely not. It's not even close. And it doesn't even correlate to anything. The spreads are all over the goddamn place. Let's look at some more. We have some interesting ones. Let's see, who else do we have? We have Ron Baker. He goes from 9th to 33rd. Where is Ron's? Right here. He goes from 9th to 33rd. That's a 24-place swing. He has a 9th. He has a 21st, another 21st, a 26th, a 30th, and a 33rd. Guys, make it make sense. You can't. You will not be able to make any sense of this whatsoever. Who else do we have? Let's look at Bruce Miller. He had anywhere from 5th place to 28th place, another 23-place swing. But there's something specific that I want to point out about Bruce. Bruce is directly involved with 2 of the judges at this event. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm actually going to kind of prove my point from earlier that the bias of having judges who work on your car is not that big of a deal. The shop that they own did the install and the tuning. That said, I think that these 2 people are very stand-up and would do as little as humanly possible to let bias get in the way. And we can shed some light on this. Bruce's highest rank was 5th place, but it wasn't even from either of the 2 that he works with, and it was from someone totally separate. The 2 that he was involved with ranked him at 12th place and 20th place, which were his 2nd highest and his 4th highest judge placings. So it's kind of averaged out in there. I think those 2 judges probably did the best job overall. And I really don't think there was any bias with it. But yeah, anyways, the only consistent ones, 1st place, well-deserved. Sorry, I had a hiccup. Only consistency was 1st place, which was well-deserved, by the way. Mark Bruno's car. It's an excellent sounding vehicle that he's been polishing for a very long time. That thing absolutely deserves 1st place. Like, that's not an argument at all. But to still see that there's even a little bit of inconsistency up there is a little bit worrying. And 2nd place had a little bit, some resemblance of consistency, at least relative to the other competitors' rankings. But even then, it was how much of a swing was it? It was a 4-place swing. Again, 46 cars. That's over 12% to 15%, somewhere in that range, margin of error, that's still not good. That's pretty bad. Oh wait, not 12%. No, my math is off. It's around a 10%, or actually a little less than 10% margin of error. Sorry. Again, math, not my strong suit off the top of my head. But still, like, even a nearly 8 to 10% margin of error, that's not great. It's not bad. It's great compared to the rest of this, but it's still an 8% margin of error is still, I'm not liking that. If we want to consider, if we want to try to say this is presented as, yeah, this is the tell-all of how a car audio sound system performs and how accurate it is. And that was Brian Mitchell's car. Also, 100% deserved. That thing's freaking crazy. If you guys haven't seen it, I have a spotlight video on it. I also have a spotlight video on Mark Bruno's car. But Brian Mitchell's is the Chevy Volt that he converted to center seat drive, and it's pretty much a room on wheels. Really cool experience if you want to check it out. Brian's the man too, by the way. If you ever see him at an event and like you don't really know him, you don't care, walk up to him, say, Brian, what's up? I want to listen to your car, and he is going to stick you in it, and you guys are going to become buddies. I guarantee it. Brian is the man. And yeah, the only other consistency is the bottom cars, which some of them I didn't even have scores for, but like, again, last place had a 1-place swing. Second last place had a 5-place swing. Third last 8-place swing. It starts getting into the territory almost immediately of not very accurate. So, some of them have like, all right, they're kind of grouped up and there's like 2 outliers maybe, but it's still, there's too much swing. Yeah, everyone else is scattered all over the goddamn place and there's no consistency at all. When I average the rank swings, again, excluding the highest top 2 and like the bottom few, the mean place swing is just over 19. That is crazy. That's, again, almost a 50% margin of error on average. That's fucking insane. That is not accurate at all. And for anyone to look at this and still try to convince themselves, to still do the mental gymnastics it takes to still try to convince themselves that, no, yeah, car audio competition is still a great way to portray the overall quality and accuracy represented in a car audio sound system. No, it's fucking not. And you're a moron if you still think that after watching this. I can kind of understand because maybe you're just not seeing the big picture before watching this. But if you can sit here, look at this data and still try to tell yourself that, I'm going to be point blank. You're either lying to yourself or you're a fucking idiot. Period. Anyways, the ranking deviations just show systemic inconsistency and easily prove my point. Again, how anyone can say that competition results are an accurate gauge of sound quality when not even the best judges in the country can come anywhere fucking close to agreeing on what cars sound accurate. Seriously, again, if you disagree, answer it. Please answer me on this. You know what? I'll even go as far as this. If you can provide data that genuinely shows otherwise to what I'm arguing here, I will wire transfer you $5,000. I will put my money where my mouth is, and there's nothing for you to lose. So if you disagree with me, fucking prove it. Anyways, another thing that I want to point out too, I want to point out some other weird inconsistencies with car audio events that maybe those who aren't as familiar or involved in, the quote unquote like car audio competition scene might not be aware of. Is there is some bullshit that happens behind the scenes. And I don't want to bring this up again to like throw, for the sake of throwing people under the bus, but like if we're having this discussion and people want to go so hard, and put competition on this pedestal, well, we really have to inspect here. And I have no proof to really like show on this. I don't have any screenshots. There's no email chain. There's no fucking Epstein list for this. But people talk about it. There's the background chatter that, again, like, you people that aren't involved in competition or haven't been involved for that long might not be privy to. But behind the scenes, this type of talk spreads around like wildfire. We know about this stuff before the event is even fully over. But one that I want to point out, it's anecdotal, but it does happen at past events. It's not exactly uncommon to hear that organizers have even thrown out an entirety of a judge's score set when they were too extreme in terms of inconsistency. That's happened at 3 events that I have been to, 2 of which I have competed at, another one that I was, just at, documenting, hanging out. It just goes to show, like, even the organizers of these events have looked at these scores and been like, duh, we can't fucking do this. This is too extreme. I think even the current setup is extreme. But if they think that's all fine and dandy, imagine how bad it can really get when judges aren't really on top of their shit, It's bad. What do you want, Gustavo? Come here. Come here, buddy. Oh, Gustavo's going to join me. You guys want to hear more? Gustavo, do you want to hear more about sound quality competition and all the nonsense that adds up to all this while we're on the topic? Come on, what are you doing? You're meowing at me? Usually means you want to hang out? Okay. You don't want to hear about this, but maybe you guys do. So more nonsense about sound quality, cardio competition. There's also been, with this specific set of data itself, I don't want to call it cover up because that sounds a little extreme. But that's just the term that comes to mind. The community member who made this sheet wasn't forced to do this, but it was suggested to him by certain people to essentially bury the sheet and let it die. My guess is to not draw attention to exactly what I've just broadcast to all of you. And I don't know. Again, if anyone's offended by me sharing this data, sorry, it was all public. It was all gathered willingly. People gave these up themselves. I'm not trying to do this to make events less popular. I'm not doing this to hurt outcomes at events. I'm not doing this to hurt participation at events. Again, I do everything else possible to try to benefit those, my sponsorships, my videos, my hosting my own in the past and hopefully more in the future. It's not my intent, but you got to be open to criticism here. We have to look at the problems and stop ignoring the fucking nonsense, because you have people running wild out here claiming nonsense, and it makes everyone look silly when we can't look at the data here and at least acknowledge that there's a problem. I'm not saying there's a solution. I'm just saying there is a problem, and the data proves that. So, speaking of the data, I'm also willing to bet that these report cards, as they call them, will probably not be given out anymore, so people can't piece together the nonsense again and broadcast it to the world like I am. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how these people went about asking this person to, let this Excel sheet sort of die out and like not bring light to it. But the fact that anything at all was mentioned that like, hey, like, these people don't want it out there. It just shows that transparency is being avoided, and there's a reason that people don't certain people don't want this brought to light. And I understand it. I get it. It kind of makes the whole thing look like a fucking joke. But, you know, it's not a joke. It's fun. I don't think it's, I think the results can be a joke. Usually are a joke, frankly. But I go there to have fun. Most people do also. There's a very select few people who take this so seriously that, like, they're not gonna, if this does change their mind, that they would stop competing. But like, people just mostly do this for fun. But still, the transparency aspect is a little bit weird here. And you know what? I might not have full context of how that all went down. And if I'm not correct on it, I apologize. I am sorry. It isn't my intent to misrepresent or misinterpret things, but I am just presenting what I have witnessed. No one else has influenced my words here. No one else has influenced my decisions here. I am just presenting what I see. This was, again, this whole thing was all public on a Facebook group. Just throwing that out there. Now, before we wrap this up, let's get into some preemptive maintenance, let's call it. I already know there's going to be pushback and rebuttal from certain people. And I think the biggest one is going to be that they're going to quote, people's ears are different. Okay, well, yeah, sure. Everyone's ears are different. That's why, scores don't match up, Sure, everyone's hearing is different, but that's irrelevant to the problem. Think about it this way. If two judges with two totally different hearing both go to the same live musical performance, they're still hearing the exact same performance. Their ears don't change what actually happened on that stage. If the same performance is recorded accurately and played back through a truly accurate sound system, both judges should still recognize that performance is accurate to exactly what they heard. Since again, that filter, as we can call it, is over their hearing is a constant. It's not like these judges could hear a live performance together and one could say that's inaccurate and the other one could say that's accurate. It's like, no, that's what's being performed right in front of our eyes. And for it to be accurately recorded and played back damn near perfectly accurate, just because it's recorded and then spit back out again doesn't mean one judge's hearing is going to go completely out of whack from another's. No, it's completely true to the reference that they heard. So again, to say that one judge's ear is different from another, that one line is true, but to say that sways the results, especially this much, is just not the fucking case at all. Again, that filter is always applied and it's always there. It is a constant. It can be effectively ignored. Anyway, if we want to look at it from a different point of view, we can look at it from the standpoint of another hobby of mine, which is photography. Two photographers might see colors a little differently, but if these two take a picture of a building or a landscape with a theoretically perfectly calibrated camera, the photo still perfectly represents what was actually there. What these two photographers who may have slightly different sight on colors, what they see when they look through at that photo that was taken on that perfectly calibrated camera, they still see exactly what they saw in person. My point is, accuracy to the source is accuracy, period. The same principle applies in audio. So the idea that different ears explains 20 to 30 place ranking swings just doesn't hold any fucking water at all. Not even close. Uh, it'd be crazy. Again, it's crazy. It's crazy talk. To me, if you can sit there and genuinely say, even after my explanation there, whether if I did a good job at that explanation or not, if you can sit there and genuinely say that no, these ears being different is the result of this, it's not even that I'm like even a little bit convinced. It is my opinion that you are fully incapable of understanding, or you fully do not understand how hearing works, how accurate reproduction works, how sound quality works, what this is as a whole. I'm convinced you do not grasp it. Period. You don't have the bigger picture. It is what it is. Anyways, another argument. You're just bitter because you've never won. Well, that's not true. Number one, but I also only compete at one, maybe two events per year. The truth is, I just don't really care all that much about cardio competition, as you can probably tell. I care about the camaraderie of it and hanging out with friends of it, but I just don't care about the results. I love going to them. But again, not for the aspects of competition itself. I don't care about chasing trophies. I just don't think it's worth the time and money, at least to me, especially given the inconsistencies that I just went over. And I also don't care to use it for marketing like other business owners seem to do. I don't, because as you can probably tell by now, I don't put any weight into it. I prefer to let the data talk for me, as seen in this video. Yeah, I just, I don't know. I don't think it's, I don't really care. And also, I have plenty of customers in the past and present who actively compete, or have competed in the past and have won major events. If I really cared, you'd be seeing me post the typical the trophy collection that a lot of guys seem to do at the end of an event, but I don't. I just don't care. To me, it makes me feel like, again, I can share, the results of all my customers if I want to, but I don't, because I don't put any stock into it. I look at it and I say, cool, I'm glad my customer did what he wanted to do and had fun, but I don't fucking care how he placed. I don't think it means anything, at least as far as what I'm talking about here. The only thing it means is that he did good at this event. It doesn't mean that his sound system actually sounds accurate. This also applies to me as well. But yeah, I don't know. There's plenty of competitors that I've either done their installs and tuning, or I just do their tuning, even currently. There's plenty of people that, I probably shouldn't say this, they're probably gonna be pissed, but whatever. There's a few people whose cars that I tune that, we don't really make it known, and they do very well at events, but I don't bring it. I don't want to bring them into this, so I'm not going to name any names, but it doesn't, I don't fucking care. It doesn't mean anything to me. So yeah, so to sit there and say oh, you're just bitter because you don't win, it's not the case at all. Yeah. And then revisiting some other issues beyond the money round spreadsheet. There's the classing problems, especially with Ayaska, basing it on experience and mixing that in with the installation, that makes no sense in the modern world of car audio. How modern car audio works and how it has kind of evolved, it just doesn't make any sense, from the aspect of just how audio reproduction in a car works to the the social aspect of it. Back in the day, this sort of worked because cardio competition was much bigger, and it was, heavily relied on by manufacturers, and there was huge amounts of people at events. And you know so sure, like basing it on experience had some validity to it, but like nowadays it just doesn't. There's not enough people. Everyone knows everyone. The internet fucking s- spreads all information like wildfire. I know people that have been doing it for 20 years that know less than people that just got into car audio 6 months ago. So it's like, it just because of how the world works now, how the internet has made everything accessible. So basing it on experience is just silly. And there's people that even throw out like, oh, like, an amateur car beat like your, what are the other class, the pro cars or whatever. But it's like, there's one person in particular who's really fucking stupid with it. And he goes, oh, an amateur, this guy might as well have fucking lead poisoning with how ridiculous and stupid he is. But you know amateur car, did really good, it's doing really good, it's beating. But it's like, dude, you don't even have a hand in your car. It was built and tuned by industry veterans with decades and decades of experience. How can you have an excellent installer do your car, or what, do your vehicle, and then have the technical trainer and the person who was a rep for that company, like a territorial rep for that company, who has decades of experience in cardio competition, probably more experience than anyone else in the world, tune your car and sit there and brag about your car. That's, again, the actions of a fucking loser. You're a tool if you do that. If you want to brag, if you're still proud of like your placings and how you do at events, and you want to talk about it and you're proud of it, sure. But brag on behalf of the people that are responsible for it. Don't. All you did was fucking sit there like a fucking toad watching these people do their thing, and then you showed up to the event. Like, that's just weird. It's like, from a social perspective, that's fucking weird to do that. Like, if you take a step back for a second, I know you're watching this and I know you're seeing this. Take a step back for a second. Look at the big picture there, and try to tell me that that's not fucking weird that you do that. Anyways, there's also the regional bias. Like I mentioned before. I won't even get into it because we went into it before, but that does happen again, where these local events start to get skewed, and things get weird because people start tuning for what like one or two judges locally want to see, and then they start putting weight into, yeah, the judge said that this is what the car needs to do, so that must sound good. It's like, dude, your judge might suck. You ever thought about that? I'm not saying they do. As we can see, even the good ones aren't even consistent. So like, but like these people that put so much weight into their local judges is like, go to local events, get feedback from judges, is like their advice I see to a lot of new people. Don't do that at all. You're going to get data that is all over the fucking place, as we can see. And again, that's data from some of the best to do it. You go to a local event, you might as well be fucking pissing in the wind. What do you mean, go to a local event and get some feedback from judges? Don't even waste your fucking time doing that. That's fucking retarded. Excuse my language, but whatever. Yeah. So it's also the conflict of interest thing, which we went over before, whatever. And then there's also one other aspect of it. There's the what I like to call the circle jerk of car audio, meaning the size of cardio competition and how many people are still actively involved. There might be 100, maybe, active competitors across the entire U.S. Sure, it's it's fun. It used to be much bigger back in the day, but like, it's not big enough these days. They're, across the entire US, there, like I said, there might be 100 people that are really doing this, including like event organizers and judges and whatever. Like I'm talking the community as a whole. There might be 100 people that do this, pretty maybe 125. It's not enough. It's a handful. For that 100 people, I'd be willing to bet, and I can almost say that I pretty almost know for a fact that there's another 100 or so cars out there that could easily come in and compete and change these very proud and happy competitors into very disappointed and pissy competitors. Um, Frankly, let me get cocky here for a second. A lot of my customers' cars could come in and change results at events like this very easily, but they don't compete. No one cares. They don't care. They don't see the point in this. They just want to enjoy their system. And whether, I'm not saying you have to, again, competition, if that's what you're into, great. Don't use it as a metric to gauge actual performance of a sound system. It's not valid as we saw in the data. So yeah, before we get out of here, maybe some closing points. I'm not shit talking the judges in this data set. I still think these are very good judges. Judging is very, very difficult, and I'm not calling them incompetent. I'm a judge. I've judged before. It is mentally exhausting. I don't know if I would be willing to judge an event of this size just because of how draining it is. And, and maybe that is part of the problem. Maybe it's so mentally draining that right after the first few cars, it's just like, ugh, who knows? I don't know. But again, I'm not saying anything negative to any of the 6 judges watching this. Not saying anything negative about you. I still hold you in high regard. Nothing about my opinion has changed on this after, looking at this. My opinion is more so on just the human error as a whole. That is impossible to get around no matter who judges this. So it's not you, it's just how it is. But yeah, the results are just inconsistent, unreliable. And my point is that the results are just not a valid measure of sound quality. The only consistency was at the very top, very bottom. The rest of it is an absolute fucking disaster. I also want to make it very clear that I don't claim to have a solution to any of this. Judging will always be flawed because of the human factors, as I mentioned before. And I'm definitely not saying that measurements or blind judging or anything would be better. So before anyone comes into the comments and saying something, oh, we should blindfold them, or oh, measurements. No, I agree that is not a solution. So I'm nipping that before that even gets argued in the comments. It will anyway, but whatever. I'm not making this video claiming that I am better or I can fix the whole thing or that I have the answers. I'm just saying that sound quality car audio competition is not a way to gauge the end result. It's not a way to gauge true sound quality, accuracy of reproduction. And part of the reason why I don't believe it's fixable is, again, because it's the human error, I don't think anyone has a solution to this, but we got to bring it up and talk about it. We can't just keep ignoring it and like gaslighting ourselves into believing that this is not happening or that this is not a problem. Ignoring it or burying it just kills interest. Look at all the people that have come and gone. Again, there were thousands of people across the US that used to do these events. Now there's maybe 100. People also spend serious amounts of time and money chasing this, and the inconsistencies are driving people away. To sit here and ignore them is to have a big problem of bleeding customers, but not doing anything about it. Like if my business was bleeding customers from one specific issue, for me to sit there and not only just ignore it, gaslight myself into believing that not only is it not a problem, but everything is actually perfectly fine and all is good in the world, that would be fucking moronic. Sorry if you guys hear that. There's a ambulance driving by. It's the sound quality car audio police coming to get me. Fuck, I better wrap this up. So to anyone watching this video who isn't really involved in the cardio competition scene, but you're curious about this, whole situation, seriously, like just ask competitors about the results and how unpredictable they could be. Everyone who's involved with this has a story, if not 10, exactly about this. And if they say they don't, they're either lying to you or it's their first or second event. So, ending note, I will say this. If you disagree with me, I will send you the spreadsheet. Explain how 20 to 30 place swings are an accurate metric of sound quality, because I'm not seeing it. Or take the same spreadsheet or a similar spreadsheet and put together the data from a similar event and present it. Prove me wrong that events have any sort of consistency in rankings and judging. Remember, I have $5,000 ready and waiting for you if you can provide data proving me wrong, data that is as strong as what I just presented. Have fun. I'm eager to send you money. To anyone else, thank you for watching, and let me know your experiences, your thoughts, or whatever on this topic in the comments below. And I'm sure I'll have another controversial video for you shortly. Thank you.